Hello, my name is Judge Joseph Wiseman. I am the supervising judge for the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians Tribal Court. And I want to welcome all of you to the Southern California Judicial Dinner that is being hosted by the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. I want to extend my appreciation to the tribe for being willing to host this event. The last time the tribe had the opportunity to host this event was a few years ago. And welcome back, everyone. I anticipate that this year's event is going to be as well attended as the last time we met in person at San Manuel. And there are a number of very important topics that we are going to be discussing and talking about at the upcoming dinner. One of the important areas we will be discussing is the pending case before the United States Supreme Court, the Brackeen case. That's a challenge to the validity of ICWA. And we'll hear a discussion about that. I know that many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the issues in that case and the effect it may have on our work to protect Native children. There'll be a number of pre-recorded updates that will be live streamed beginning at 3 p.m. on the day of our meeting together. In addition, there's going to be a reception for Judge Sunshine Sykes, who is the first Native judge appointed to the federal bench in California. She's going to be attending our dinner. And I think we're all absolutely delighted that she'll be there. I know I am. And I think there's going to be a lot of information that we will learn from her. But the real purpose is to congratulate her and honor her appointment to the federal bench. We'll have live stream. There'll be a live stream of the reception. We'll begin at 4:15 with an introduction to Judge Sykes. And that will be followed by a history of the judges' dinners. So you all know why we're having this dinner today and the history of how these dinners came about. The live event will begin promptly at 5 p.m. There'll be several honorees who we will honor for their work in our region. And you will hear from, as I said before, a variety of speakers about topics that are significant to all of our work to protect Native children and all children. I'm looking forward to meeting my colleagues on the state court bench. I'm looking to renew my friendship with those colleagues that I serve with on the tribal court bench. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody. Safe travels, and we will see you in a couple days. Thank you all very much.
Greetings from the Child and Family Policy Institute of California. We are extremely honored to be recognized as tribal justice champions for this wonderful event. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the executive director of the Child and Family Policy Institute of California, and my colleague.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Sobrato, also with the Child and Family Policy Institute of California.
So I always like to begin a conversation about ICWA by recalling that I was a social worker in the field in child welfare in San Francisco at the time that the Indian Child Welfare Act was passed. It's always a little unfortunate to have to recall that we haven't fully implemented ICWA, but I think it's also important to recognize that we all continue to link arms in moving forward to making sure that one day we'll have fully implemented ICWA across not only California, but across the United States. So it's wonderful to be here with all of you, continuing to advance that work and make sure that we achieve our goals. The Child and Family Policy Institute of California over the last couple of years has taken a severe interest in a serious interest in addressing issues of race, equity, diversity, and inclusion in the child welfare community across California. And as part of that work, over several months, we hosted 3 sessions on ICWA and learned a lot in those sessions and hopefully transmitted in our conversations with the child welfare leadership community across California, the importance of focusing on many of the lessons that we've learned from the American Indian community. Andrea is going to tell us a little bit about what we learned in those sessions and what we shared with the child welfare leadership in California. Andrea?
Great. Thank you. Yeah, so those webinars were incredibly important. They were almost, I like to think about them as forums for statewide conversation. Folks who attended represented all levels of leadership within child welfare, as well as representatives from many tribes and elders and community leaders and folks who had a real interest and a strong commitment to see ICWA fully implemented in California. So conversations were rich, they were authentic, they were humbling, and they were full of local wisdom being shared. So a few of the salient points that we really centered around and gained a lot of traction were that relationships must be anchored in trust, and that relationships over time are essential between county leadership and tribes in order to ensure good collaboration on behalf of Native children, youth, and families involved or at risk of involvement in the child welfare system. But those relationships are really grounded in the understanding that tribes are sovereign nations, and that child welfare's relationship with tribes, it is a government to government relationship. And tribal sovereignty must be understood and respected in order for partnerships to become nurtured and grow over time. We talked a lot about cultural values. We took turns in sharing perspectives, so that really that perspective sharing helped us understand that tribal engagement and consultation would be foundations for partnership within county child welfare systems. This great learning, though, it wasn't just event-based, even though it took a place over maybe an expansive 8 months or so of people gathering together, both statewide and then in local forums with kind of take-home activities. But this sort of the crescendo of these 8 months of really talking about ICWA, what was that it resulted in some really key points, some key elements, and some and 2 or 3 key values and some learning principles that would go forward and would be embedded earlier this year, would be embedded into the California Child and Family Core Practice Model. So in essence, the key learning from these webinars really has gone into the foundation for all practice in child welfare in California through this core practice model, through the integration of those principles or the infusion of those principles into this practice model that truly is the foundation for child welfare practice in our state. So we're very pleased because we feel like this work has a good chance of really influencing the way that practice is conducted in our state.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you all for the opportunity to join you again at this wonderful event. We hope it's a success. We know it will be a success, and we look forward to hearing the results and seeing you all again next year.
Hello, I am Kim Johnson, Director of the California Department of Social Services. I'm coming to you from the ancestral homeland of the Nisenan Maidu peoples, who are indigenous peoples of this land and have lived here since time immemorial. At the Department of Social Services, we continue to recognize the need to look to tribal communities and leaders as the source of cultural knowledge, to respect tribal communities, to express and assert their sovereignty and strengthen our government-to-government relationships. And we believe it is essential to collaborate and reinforce our commitment with California tribes to ensure tribal engagement and tribal consultation. We also continue our commitment to the Indian Child Welfare Act and support and join in tribal acknowledgement of ICWA legacy of keeping Native children safe, healthy, and connected to their families, communities, and cultures. We are glad to be part of carrying out significant investments for children and families and tribes with you across California. We have seen new investments in continued housing and homelessness, tribal food benefits, family finding and engagement support activities, funding to increase the use of home-based family care, funds to reimburse tribes for costs associated with providing technical assistance to county child welfare agencies and probation departments to develop tribal consultation protocols, funding to provide stipends to tribally approved homes and to purchase live scan machines and receive ongoing reimbursements for fingerprinting costs and other costs related to the background check process for tribally approved homes. And of course, the first of its kind investment to support legal counsel to represent an Indian tribe in California's juvenile court proceedings. We will be working with you through consultation and more to ensure that these investments reach the communities. We are also glad to work with tribes on our ICWA statewide plan, a strategic plan within our Office of Tribal Affairs, and continuing to strengthen our consultation with you through our annual consultation opportunities and others. The department continues to work to ensure that tribal engagement and consultation are embedded into our programs, our policies, our practice development, and how we're working with counties in the same way to strengthen theirs, to better include and meet the Indian Child Welfare Act in order to improve outcomes, to improve well-being of tribal children and reduce disproportionality. We appreciate the leadership of our Office of Tribal Affairs, who's doing much training and support across the organization and can help us to continue to build our capacity. But overarchingly, I'm here to tell you we have a continued commitment to work together and honor tribal voice. Thank you for.
Hi, I'm Sylvie DePorto, and I'm giving an update on the ICWA statewide plan. The ICWA statewide plan began its development between Office of Tribal Affairs and Tribal Advisory Committee. It was moved over to the Division of Children and Family Services so that the development of the ICWA statewide plan could continue and that the California Department of Social Services Children and Family Services Division could engage county child welfare agencies and tribal social services in an effort to improve ICWA compliance across the state of California. There are strategies and objectives for each branch within the Children and Family Services Division. Those strategies and objectives are currently being vetted by tribal representatives with a completion date targeted for October 23rd. Once the statewide plan is completed, there will be a rollout plan, which will begin in January. That will consist of regional meetings that are organized through California Department of Social Services and the Office of Tribal Affairs to bring together tribal representatives, county agency representatives of child welfare, and CDSS staff to discuss the different strategies and objectives of the state plan, the requirements to achieve these strategies and objectives, and the timeline for moving this forward. In addition to the release of the statewide plan, there is the development of an oversight committee, an oversight compliance committee, which will consist of CDSS branch chiefs, tribal representatives, and county child welfare director representatives. This committee will meet on a regular basis and provide oversight to the implementation of these different strategies and objectives. This committee would be led by Diana Wagner, who is the assistant director to Angie Schwartz in the Children and Family Services Division. It's exciting for us to have the ICWA statewide plan, and I know that tribal representatives across the state of California are looking forward to the release of the plan and the beginnings of the work to implement the plan. And I know that county child welfare directors have given a great deal of support to the development of the plan and are looking forward also to the implementation of it as well. So that's the ICWA statewide plan update. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hello, my name is Scott Trowbridge, and I am the lead for Child Welfare Court Improvement with the Children's Bureau here just outside of Washington, D.C. And I wanted to thank Tom for inviting me to talk about what we are doing around supporting Indigenous families in our sphere of the work we do. First, I want to just start with a land acknowledgement. I'm calling into the Zoom from Piscataway land here just outside of Washington, D.C. And the big update I have that I want to share with you is a new, as of 2 days old, updated, well, a new set of tools to help courts, attorneys gather data, and using that in a rather broad sense of the term, on child welfare legal practice. And the acronym for this is JCAMP, which stands for Judicial Court Attorney Measures of Performance. And it's multiple volumes. It's a whole suite of resources, and I'm just going to highlight a few of them because I hope that's enough that maybe you will check them out and find different ways. We tried to build a suite that would be useful to different people depending on different things they might be wanting to do. But this involved a very large group of stakeholders over the last year, almost 70 consultants, a comprehensive literature review on research around child welfare legal practice, so you'll find that in there. And it was developing both data elements as well as tools to collect that data. And it's tries to connect the dots to a lot of things, to agency data sets that are used across the states, and also measures that are connected to standards of practice, judicial and attorney. And the overall are meant to supplement measures that child welfare agencies use and not duplicate them. One big way they do that is they bring in a lot of elements around due process, and very much to the credit of the consultants who were parents and youth with lived experience in the child welfare system. What I had originally pitched as due process elements really got divided out into both what did the attorneys and judges do, or perhaps the court clerks, court administrators, to ensure due process, but also how did the family experience it? And so that some of that leads to different types of data collection that you might be potentially interested in. But as a big picture, this is a rather comprehensive and is universal, nationally applicable set of materials, a suite of materials. But for many reasons, it's very, very customizable. Because we went into this knowing that there might be certain things in the federal law, but those do not even apply to many tribes. And then there's many state laws that vary. There's different practice models. And as importantly, there's different things that you might want to learn more about your system. So these are tools for you to use, how it would be helpful to you. And you can navigate through the suite to find the things that matter to you that would be meaningful to you. So you could jump right to a parent survey that our parents with lived experience helped develop, that was connected to research, and have that right in your hands. But the main way it's recommended you go through these tools is that there's a needs assessment that goes through your priorities as a legal system, what is applicable, what's not applicable, and sort of like a flow chart, it would walk you through to ways that you could collect that data, good questions you could ask in surveys or focus groups. In a way, I think it's just goes without saying that having something universally applicable is an impossible task, but we were trying to make something that would be as useful to the most jurisdictions as possible. So you're getting the picture that, well, this sounds like it's going to have a lot of content maybe it's more for states, and there's a fair comment there. But what's the usefulness or relevance to tribal courts? So some context that I think is worth sharing is that of those, I said around 70 consultants, we had many people involved that had a lot of expertise in both ICWA and in tribal court, former tribal attorneys and judges, for example. We field tested these in 4 sites, one of which was a tribal court. So thanks to Eastern Band of Cherokee for helping and giving us feedback before we got to the final draft of this. And so a long story of a year of development short, I very much had it in mind from the start that we wanted to do as much as we could to potentially make it useful to tribal courts. And I think some of that adaptability of the way it's designed, and not, here's the set of measures that you should be measuring, or, here's your alternate ones, but that it's a path to hone in on what you would think is useful. It came from some of those contributions, those insights, but I think it's worth mentioning that they were not alone in that perspective. In field testing in a small state, smaller than the county I'm calling you from in population, versus a state that was in the top 10, we also heard that from those folks that helped us field test, that the adaptability for scale, for the size of the jurisdiction, was an important factor too. So very flexible. If you can look at it as this was as universal as we could make it, but it's also very customizable. Also, I mentioned the literature review, and so from the start, the ICWA was on the list of things to make sure to look for in the literature review, and so ICWA is incorporated throughout. In particular, some prior research on ICWA practice from 3 states, and which also involved tribal collaboration on designing those, what they were looking at. But I think, what get added there also was, again, to the due process measures, the perspective of fairness to the families. So it's really something that is new in kind to things we've had before, to try to ensure ICWA spirit and letter of the law is followed. And so it's a big suite. You'll see if you take a look at it, there's ways you're going to come up with, I hope, that are useful that we haven't even thought of. But a few things occur to me that I know we intentionally tried to make this useful to tribal courts. So one, it's flexible enough. You can drill down and make this make sense within your tribal code, the way it's designed. So if there's things you want to learn about how things are going, how families are experiencing your court, there's a pathway to help you get to that. Another way I think we very much thought of this is states collaborating with tribes on ICWA or otherwise. Again, ICWA elements are in there. And so that's another way we hope it's used, and we're talking to states about the potential of that as well. So in our next phase, just starting next week, we're going into year 2 of this and trying to help states and tribes implement this. And we have funding set aside to help with technical assistance, and we're going to look for we're going to offer to a few states and a few tribes some assistance. So we have researchers, we have attorneys with expertise. Former tribal council is on the team that is poised to help make these useful for however you see that they could be useful to you. So I'm recording this 2 days after it was completed, and it's not yet on the website, but by the time you see this, I think JCAMP, again, Judicial Court Attorney Measures of Performance, should be on the Child Welfare Information Gateway by the time you see this. But if not, let me see if I can do this. If you can see that, there is my email, scott.trowbridge@acf.hhs.gov. So again, thank you, Tom, for inviting me. JCamp, it's new, it's out there. Let me know if you have any questions, and hope you have a wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Lucero, and I'm a retired judge from Santa Clara County, where I sat on the bench from 2001 to 2022. I'm now the director of the California Health and Human Services Agency's Office of Youth and Community Restoration. Today, I am speaking from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Halkeen, Irgen, Ohlone tribal group, direct ancestors of the Wikma Ohlone tribe, who were missionized into Missions Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose. I recognize that a land acknowledgement does nothing without action to support the indigenous peoples whose sovereign land I reside on and work today, as well as the tribal communities across California that my work impacts. For myself and my team, a land acknowledgement needs to be accompanied by concrete commitments to listen, learn, and genuinely partner with California tribal communities. I am thankful for the opportunity to participate in this event of the Tribal Justice Collaborative. My office is committed to approaching justice through a partnership with tribal judges and tribal leadership throughout California. To that end, Governor Gavin Newsom acknowledged and apologized on behalf of the state of California for the violence, displacement, and destruction of tribal communities. This violence is not only part of our state's history, but its effects persist today. The reparative action that the state has taken, such as the establishment of the Truth and Healing Council in 2019, is a step to address those wrongs in an effort to heal Native Californians and the relationship between tribal communities and the state at large moving forward. Reparative actions like this are why my colleagues and I at the Office of Youth and Community Restoration are proud to be a part of the transition towards a justice system that prioritizes restorative practices and a research-based health and healing approach to youth justice. For the past 2 decades, California has enacted a series of legislative measures designed to reshape the statewide youth justice system. With the passing of SB 823 in July 2021, all state youth prisons were closed, and the responsibility for managing all justice-involved youth now depends on local-based custody, care, and supervision. My office has been charged with helping the state make a transition from a correctional to a health and healing juvenile justice model. Our approach aligns with the statewide values and is the necessary approach to support the disproportionate amount of Black, Brown, and Native youth who are impacted by the juvenile justice system. It also aligns with the restorative approach that Native communities have long taken. At this moment, California is at the forefront of transforming youth justice, both statewide and nationally. State and Native leaders can redefine what it means for government and communities to partner as we approach implementing this new vision for youth justice through the lens of equity and health. Restorative practices and cultural respect are core values of my office, and these are values that are rooted in the practices of Native Californians. My experience has taught me that forming authentic and trusting relationships takes time. I am thankful to be speaking with you today because I am eager for the partnership between the Office of Youth and Community Restoration and the Tribal Justice Collaborative to reflect the regional nuances of tribal communities. We must start with listening to the voices of tribal leaders. From the conversations that I have been a part of, I know that counting the true numbers of Native American youth in court systems in a meaningful way is a top priority because we count what we care about, and we need this data to improve our justice systems, and so do tribes. I have heard from tribal leaders that OYCR must be ready to develop a continuum of care that includes and recognizes tribal communities and their cultural values around mental health services, and includes specialized consultations for complex cases like CSEC cases. It also means that we must provide knowledge and research to help counties to support their youth within rural communities, including by promoting state court partnerships with tribal courts and tribal nations. I acknowledge the pressing and uncertain moment that our country is in regarding ICWA. OYCR is committed to working with the state administration in support of Native children and youth to ensure that they continue to receive the support and the protection of tribal communities. California and OYCR are committed to working in service and support of Native Californians. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of this series of judges' dinners and for our continued work together in the future.
I wish I was there with you in California. I'd rather be there than anywhere else. I'm calling in from Denver right now, doing this recording from Denver. This background here is from the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. I'm Northern Cheyenne. My name is Sheldon Spotted Elk. Pive Shif, and that means good day. It's a beautiful day is what it really means. But in the response to that, if I was there in person, I'd do a call back and make you do this. The response is you put your thumb to your heart, and you do a sideways karate chop, and you say Piva. So I say Piva Ishif, and your response is Piva. So hey, it's good to be with you guys. I'm going to talk to you about ICWA courts. There's a lot of things that have happened recently with ICWA courts. And it's exciting time. I know somebody's probably going to be doing an update on Brackeen. I work with Casey Family Programs. We're trying to develop some strategies around Brackeen. In response to Brackeen, we have developed strategies around that. And including ICWA courts. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the work here and some of the work that is going to transcend no matter what the Supreme Court says. We're going to be here. Indigenous people have always been here, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be everywhere. We're still going to be here. And so I find comfort and solace in that. And I find comfort and solace in some of the work that is happening with the ICWA courts. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about at the very end some of that work. But first of all, I'm going to share a screen and do a couple of slides, only 4 slides. I promise you it's going to be short and sweet. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that ICWA is the gold standard of child welfare. And it has been called that on numerous occasions. This is the reason why. And I have to tell you this because it sets the context for everything, is that, of course, we all know, especially maybe the pandemic taught me this more than anything that's recently taught me this, is that we need connection. We need community. We need these concentric circles around us to protect us. You know, when life gets tough and the winds and the storms of life come, we call family. You know, we worship, we find comfort in our friends and our relatives, you know, so that's really vitally important. We want that for all children. And the reason that ICWA is the gold standard is that it memorializes this in law. And so we fight with active efforts, more than reasonable efforts. We fight with active efforts to keep children safely with their families. That's not possible. We look to relatives and kin to keep them connected to their identity and culture. And all this happens within a cultural and a community affirming environment. We all need that. Every child needs that. Every adult needs that. So that is why it's the gold standard. There's some values that are in that. I got the opportunity in my next slide I want to tell you about. I got this opportunity one time to hang out with Bert Hirsch. He's the guy on the right, and that's Jack Trope in the middle. So I was hanging out with these guys. These are ICWA legends, so to speak, you know. So Bert Hirsch is one of the 3 lawyers that put pen to paper and wrote ICWA. The other 2 lawyers are both Indigenous lawyers, Frank Ducheneau, Cheyenne River Sioux, and Alan Parker, who's Chippewa Cree. And so those are the 3 primary lawyers that drafted this bill. And I really like, so even though I'm saying like venerated language around this bill, I like what Bert said. This is the guy that put pen to paper on this law. And he says, after all, ICWA is just bleeping words on a paper. It takes working together for it to reach its highest aspirations. So for you and I to collaborate, for you and I to understand each other, for you and I to build trust, that is the magic behind ICWA. It's not the black words on paper. It's not any of those words that make ICWA magic and make it gold standard. It's actually the collaboration and the opportunity for us to build bridges. And that fundamentally is what ICWA courts are about. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that here just in a second. But the second thing that Bert told me in that dinner that, well, started as a lunch, and we were just hanging out so long that it turned into a dinner, is that the second thing he told me is that ICWA is a reparative law. It's the only child welfare law that's reparative in nature. And if you look at the congressional findings of it, you'll see why. It was aimed to repair, it was aimed to heal. So I think of yourself and how do you show up as a healer? I know in my tribe, I'm Northern Cheyenne, we have this whole history, and you could look at, we have this whole history of being warriors. Our societies are actually kind of trained to make us warriors, but ultimately we're supposed to be healers at the end. You know, we're supposed to be healers. And so how do we show up like that? How do you show up like that? Is my question for something for you to think about. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that's happening throughout the country. We do have a website. And so we have if you Google ICWA courts, we fought really hard to make sure that our website would be the #1 thing that came up. NCJ FCJ is the technical assistance provider for ICWA courts. And so you'll see their website. And there's now 20 ICWA courts out there. Can you believe that? If I was there in person, I'd make you applaud, clap, because there's 20 ICWA courts throughout the country now. We started off with 2 ICWA courts. I remember when there was 2 ICWA courts, and so now we have 20. It's, to me, I don't believe it. I feel like I'm lying. But we have 20 ICWA courts. I'm not lying. And so adjudicating, and this is self-reported, adjudicating about 3,000 Indian children. Some of the things that are in common, they have high levels of tribal ICWA collaboration. So working with tribes that appear most in their jurisdictions, they're partnering with them on a high level. There is a practice of cultural humility. So there's steering committees or stakeholder groups that meet and really cultivate a practice of cultural humility and anti-racism. And ultimately addressing, and I have the data wrong on this, but ultimately addressing the 2.7 now American Indian disproportionality from the 2020 AFCARs. And so we're working really hard to attempt to reduce that. We do have some data studies out there that show some good outcomes, that ICWA courts are a positive correlation to that. Some of the data that we have, and this is coming out, there's the baseline measure study. And if you're interested in any of these data reports, send me an email, find me on social media, whatever you need to do. And I'll send you this ASAP. But some of the data that we have is that the most significant data, the magic of ICWA courts, is that when you get a tribe involved earlier in the case, you get better outcomes. Actually, the data that we have, 119 days better outcomes. You get 900 days reduction of children in foster care if the tribe is at shelter hearing is the exact data point on that. Pima ICWA court, they found that there's an increase in placement preferences, increased tribal participation, parent participation. And so we see these things almost immediately. Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, ICWA Court, no termination of parental rights since our ICWA Court has started. Their higher tribal placement, higher placement preferences. In Denver, we're seeing higher rates of placement preferences. Duluth, Minnesota, we're seeing diversion. Actually, they've gone upstream in some ways, and they're now doing pre-petition work with tribes as far as diverting those cases of what they call the family transfer process. And so we're trying to get that information out there. But their partnerships are with the tribes so much that they're talking even before a petition is even filed. So that means they're not responding to a notice. And I know a lot of jurisdictions struggle just with the notice aspect of it. But thinking about going upstream and partnering with tribes earlier than that is a powerful thing, and something that has really moved the dial in a lot of jurisdictions. The last thing I want to talk to you about, so we've done some work just most recently, and this year has been busy. And so we've been all over the country. But most recently, I went up to Billings, Montana, and I'm Northern Cheyenne. So this is the ICWA Court that's closest to my tribal jurisdiction. It's right there. If you could see my mouse, that's where Billings, Montana is at. And so, but we went up there recently, and we looked at, I learned about all their innovation. If you want to learn more about it, there's actually a podcast called Gavel Talk. You can find it on your podcast listening, whatever you listen to, whatever choice you listen to. It's season 3, episode 20. Like I said, if you're like, I can't find that, I'm not going to look for it, just reach out to me. I'll send it to your way as soon as possible. But I was up in Billings, Montana recently. You could see the leaves have turned. It was just last week, in fact. But I was so blown away by some of their data outcomes that I need to share them with you, because I feel like this is what shows what's possible. Because they've developed a treatment court model that overlaps with their ICWA Court. Amazing. And so no judges sit on this is Judge Souza that I'm taking a shameless selfie with. He does not sit on a bench. He sits with everybody else on tables. Everybody shows up at the table with solution-oriented mindset. I really love my good friend, Brooke Bracker Taylor, who's the assistant AG. She refuses the title of prosecutor. I'd embarrass her if she was on this right now. Instead, she wants to be called the courtroom leader. She wants to be like, maybe that's a little elementary school stuff, but she wants to be a courtroom leader. She wants to be somebody that helps, as a helper, and is in that solution-oriented mindset. It shows up with a culture of humility. There's a collaborative representation model. The lawyers are talking before the hearings. There's a lot of out-of-court advocacy. That's one of the aspects of getting better outcomes. What are you doing out of court for your client? When you walk into their court, you'll see tribal flags. And so those are the tribes that appear most in their jurisdiction. You'll see them. But some of the data outcomes that they just recently reported on, and I put this side by side. So the yellow is the ICWA Court. So we have 82% reunification in their ICWA Court versus generally Montana cases. Every case is a 63% in general court for reunification. As far as permanency outcomes with guardianships or relatives, 14% in ICWA Court, 11% with general population. And then as far as termination of parental rights and adoption, 4% TPR and state courts, 21%. And so there's some significant outcomes when you put ICWA Court in Montana versus general practice. And I feel like that's what's possible. That's ultimately what we're trying to do with ICWA Courts. A lot of places are trying to do with ICWA Courts is ultimately show up with humanity, compassion. And I know when we put compassion and passion together, we become magic. And so when we show up with those attitudes and with those ethos, we become a change agent. We become somebody that can shift the dial. And so I hope all you guys enjoy your dinner, and I hope you guys have a good time. I'll leave you with this. I share it sometimes, and maybe I didn't share it with you, so please forgive me if you've heard this. But in Cheyenne, I only speak a little bit of it. Unfortunately, my dad fluent, and I didn't get to learn very much except swear words. So I'm not teaching you swear words, I promise you. But in Cheyenne, there's a saying, a proverb, a wise saying that goes, I'll say in Cheyenne first. Urtimistum Avisuaris rules standards. And what that means is that when the struggles come of life, we all have them. Those aren't what are going to define us. It's how we approach those struggles. And so it's the passion and the courage that we have to approach the disproportionality in our communities, to approach some of these issues that we see right now, to approach Brad King. So that's ultimately what's going to define us. Our grandkids are going to define us by that. They're going to ask, what were you doing when there was this disproportionality? They're going to ask you, what were you doing during this, when this injustice was happening? And I feel like that's important for us to be able to look them straight in the eye and say, hey, it was on the side of justice, and not just us in this room eating this fine dinner, but for all of humanity. I showed up for justice for all of humanity. And so enjoy your meal. If you want to learn more about ICWA, like I said, we have a website on the NCGA FCJ's website. Google it. Or if you want to reach out to me and want to know more about some of the things I brought up, please do that. Like I said, wish I was there with you. Please enjoy your meal, and we'll catch you at the next dinner. I hope so. Thank you. Bye. Yash.
Hi, my name is Tamara Kohler, and I'm the CEO of the Regional Task Force on Homelessness for the San Diego region, and it is an honor to be a part of this event. We recognize the importance of having genuine and personal relationships with the tribes in order to address homelessness and how it looks on tribal lands. RTFH was honored to partner with the Indian Health Council, the Southern Indian Health Council, and the American Indian Health Council to host 3 listening sessions this summer with the Tribal Continuum members affiliated with each health council. These sessions were an important first step in engaging with tribal leadership to develop solutions together. We heard the experiences of homelessness differ among Indigenous people living in the rural tribal lands versus your urban areas. Although there are differences, the traumatic impact on families and children is a constant. Children and families are impacted when a loved one at risk of homelessness, and the family may make room in their home for that person or family to avoid losing a roof over their heads and a safe place to sleep at night. Children and families are devastated by the experience a member of their family as they become disconnected and are lost to the streets. We heard about the lack of resources among the reservations to address homelessness and access the services to help people become healthy. The common theme of housing affordability and availability thread through all of the rural tribal communities, as well as among people living in the cities and towns in San Diego. RTFH is committed to developing strong relationships with tribal partners throughout the region, and we are looking for opportunities throughout our work to raise up tribal voices, to support tribes in acquiring resources, and establishing a meaningful engagement with tribal leadership in regional solutions. We need all of our best efforts to end homelessness as we know it. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the annual ICWA Judges Dinner. I am Dr. Kimberly Giardina, Director for Child Welfare Services with the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency. It is an honor and a pleasure to be celebrating at this dinner again with all of you. This is my 4th Judges Dinner, and it is always a wonderful way to connect and continue to keep our focus on the importance of ICWA and our tribal partnerships. In San Diego, we continue to strive to address disparities and inequities for Native American children and families in our child welfare system. Our Indian Specialty Unit continues to consult and collaborate with our ICWA representatives. We are part of the Tribal Justice Collaborative, working across sectors with our tribal and juvenile courts to focus on important issues for Native families involved with child welfare and probation. We've been active at the state and local level, participating in various conferences, the 7th generation meetings, and ICWA work groups. I am particularly excited about some new partnerships that we're developing to improve the recruitment and support for tribally approved resource family homes. We know how important it is for Native youth to be placed in a tribal home to maintain those familial and cultural connections. And as the state prepares for the implementation of the Family First Prevention Services Act, San Diego has been very intentional about including our tribal partners in the planning process. Our consultants met with ICWA tribal representatives to conduct the readiness assessment, and we hold monthly community partner meetings that include tribal representatives for ongoing FFPSA planning. I'm also very excited that we are undertaking an effort to develop a new department, the Department of Child and Family Wellbeing. This department will merge our First Five Commission, many of our prevention and family strengthening services like Family First, our child care system, and child welfare into one department, with the goal of better integrating and increasing our investment in primary prevention so that our child well-being system truly strengthens families, reduces the risk of abuse and neglect, and prevents the need for foster care. As we embark on the development of this new department, we are seeking broad community input, including our tribal partners, to ensure the structure of the new department is established in a way that best serves children and families. And I'm excited about this new direction that we are taking, and we resolve that equity and the importance of ICWA will remain as central components of this work. Thank you for the opportunity to share these updates and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Auka. Inya Ipai Kumiai, Eshkonan Kopai. Hello, I'm Ipai Kumiai from Eshkonan, also known as the Ipai Nation of Santa Isabel. My name is Sunny Dominguez, and I'm the Assistant Program Coordinator for the Tribal Star program within the Academy for Professional Excellence. I'm recording from the homeland of my ancestors, the land of the Ipai Kumiai, on the Ipai Nation of Santa Isabel. In May, the Southern Academy convened the other training academies to help identify ways we could elevate social work practice for improved ICWA compliance and outcomes for Native American families. Southern Academy led the creation of an ICWA collaborative. The ICWA collaborative has twice met, devoting their time to identify where gaps may be in training and support for child welfare workers and additional collaborative partners. As we look towards our 20th year, Tribal Star continues in its multiple roles to build connections, cultivate ICWA champions, and improve ICWA compliance. Tribal Star did an introduction to ICWA presentation for the 2022 State ICWA Conference in June. Tribal Star convenes the 7th Generation Work Group, which is a collaborative dedicated to elevating child welfare practice for child welfare personnel working with Native American children and families. The 7th Generation Work Group is comprised of tribal and county child welfare professionals, court-appointed special advocates, education service providers, and community members. The work group brought our county partners together and facilitated a process to correct and standardize how demographic data is collected in each Southern county. This effort has resulted in improved accuracy in identifying and serving Native American children and families, and supports efforts to reduce disproportionality. We are pleased to share that as a result of our collaboration, this effort was elevated to state level through the Southern ICWA Field Liaison. We hope statewide efforts will be as successful. Tribal Star expects to almost double its ICWA line worker core training for this fiscal year and has partially turned to in-person deliveries. Tribal Star began a new partnership this fiscal year with San Diego County Probation to develop and deliver an ICWA curriculum for probation officers. The curriculum will be submitted for STC certification in November, and probation training will begin in February. Tribal Star continues to support and encourage the development of county protocols for working with tribal families. This helps with both inquiry and with communication breakdowns. The Academy's Child Welfare Development Services Program continues to deliver a cultural responsiveness academy focused on Native American culture, which includes the curriculum for the current CRA series, which include an e-learning, 5 classes, and a simulation focused on Native American tribes and tribal communities. The curriculum was developed with the collaboration of tribes local to San Bernardino County, as well as individuals with professional and lived experience. CRA classes in this series integrate culturally responsive practice with aspects of the California core practice model to highlight how the two are connected in the goal of creating a system of care where tribes and tribal communities are respected and empowered. To support this effort, the CRA learners will also have the opportunity to participate in coaching sessions with Kim Metler, the program manager for Tribal Star, to assist them in critically thinking through their implementation of culturally responsive practice when working with tribes and tribal communities. CRA classes are open to San Bernardino County, CFS staff, and local tribal partners, and classes will be facilitated by both members of the Native American community as well as those with child welfare experience. The Academy for Professional Excellence and Tribal Star are excited to continue to do the work to support Native American children and families. We thank you for the opportunity to share our work on the Tribal Justice Collaborative platform. Ohaye Iyehan. Thank you. My heart as well.
Hello, my name is Ana Espana, and I am the presiding judge of the Juvenile Division of the San Diego Superior Court. I would like to provide an update regarding the San Diego Tribal Juvenile Court Partnership. We've been meeting now for about 3 years. This year, we worked with our probation partners to enhance all of our efforts to identify Native children within the juvenile justice system. We've improved our inquiry at first contact. So kids who are in juvenile hall are being asked by their probation officers, or for those kids who are out of custody in their first meeting with probation, they're being asked the question also whether or not they have any Native American heritage. Also, probation is submitting the ICWA 010 to each initial report to the court. The deputy public defenders appointed to represent kids are asking their clients at first meeting whether there's any Native American heritage, and our juvenile court judges are ensuring that the inquiry is being made. Also this year, I signed a special order which supports participation by tribes in those cases not governed by the Indian Child Welfare Act. This order supports attendance by tribal representatives to all hearings pertaining to the youth, ensures that they are able to do those activities permitted by Welfare Institutions Code Section 306.6, for example, to address the court, to request and receive notice of hearings, present to the court information that is relevant to the proceedings, and so on. And also to ensure that they're able to examine the juvenile court file to the extent permitted by Welfare Institutions Code Section 827A5 and Welfare Institutions Code Section 827(f). Also this year, our legal justice partners on the dependency side and our judges committed to watching the excellent Indian Child Welfare Act legal update webinar, which was done by Judge Shauna Schwartz, a judge of the County of Santa Clara, and Judge Mark Vizzola, Chief Judge of the Pollitt Band of Mission Indians. It has been a wonderful collaborative between our juvenile court, child welfare and probation, and our tribal leaders over the last couple of years. We look forward to our continued work together in 2023. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everybody, to the 11th Annual Judges Dinner for Southern California. We are so pleased you could join us tonight. My name is Tom Lito. I'm a Tlingit Indian, born and raised in San Diego on Kumeyaay territory. I am the tribal liaison for the Tribal Justice Collaborative, one of your hosts for this evening's event. This past year, the Tribal Justice Collaborative focused on community development and community organizing, co-hosting 3 listening sessions on homelessness in Indian country in San Diego with one of our new partners, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, and providing technical assistance and support to the Tribal Juvenile Court Partnership led by Presiding Judge Ana Espana of the Superior Court and Chief Judge Devanlo Mayasva of the Intertribal Court of Southern California. We also worked with the Central Region, providing technical assistance and support for the inaugural dinner, which just happened on October 28th. We have 4 new partners to announce to you today. The Acorns to Oak Trees program, led by Seasoned Good Pasture, an important program making sure that there is support for our children with special needs. The Child and Family Policy Institute of California, who in truth have been part of our movement to ensure ICWA implementation for many years, the Office of Community and Youth Restoration, led by Director Catherine Lucero, and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, centered here in San Diego County, where we initiated 3 listening sessions with the CEO, Tamara Kohler, and Susan Bauer. We want to welcome our new partners, and we want to welcome you to tonight's event. I know it'll be a good event.
Hi, I'm Susan Goodpasture. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Acorns to Oak Trees, which is an organization that is dedicated to raising awareness about intellectual and developmental disabilities in tribal communities. And our organization got its start from a passion project called Harley's Hope Project. And that is our daughter, Harley. She is really behind it all and our inspiration to reach other Native families and tribal communities to raise awareness about IDD and what some of those early warning signs are. And so that is basically how we got our start, was through the Harley's Hope Project. And then since then, we've expanded to providing actually those therapeutic interventions that a lot of the kids who have IDD or just even a developmental delay qualify for through a regional center, such as occupational therapy, speech and language, and ABA. And so we are one of the first, I think the first tribal organization to get vendored with a regional center. We just got vendored with San Diego Regional Center, and we're really excited. And we're going to be working on getting a vendor through the Inland Regional as well. So we will be able to provide those services to both counties, San Diego and Riverside County. And we also do a number of outreach events. That's where we show our Harley's Hope Project storytelling video. And that's our family telling our journey about coming to terms with Harley's diagnosis, understanding it, and just our journey of navigating all of the resources that are available and just being able to identify them. We had a really hard time. And so we knew that other people within our tribal communities most likely had that same experience. So we are really dedicated to raising awareness of not only the high prevalence of IDD within our tribal communities, but also providing those therapeutic interventions, because it is really hard to get service providers out to our rural areas, as many of us know. So we are located in Paula. My husband and I have a 5-acre property there, and we are developing it for that purpose. So we've got our little clinic set up, and we're providing services out of there. And soon we will be expanding to do equine therapy there on the property and a number of other really fun things. So we're really excited to bring these resources and services to our community. It's very much needed, and we are open to serving all of our tribal families. And we look forward to meeting all of you and hoping to welcome everybody out. We'll be doing a grand opening in the early spring, so we will be sure to share that news. And thank you so much for having us be part of this event.